If you are over 60 and you have noticed that things which used to be effortless have quietly become difficult, getting up from a low chair without using your arms, carrying groceries from the car to the kitchen, climbing a flight of stairs without stopping, keeping your balance on an uneven surface, I want you to understand something important before we go any further. This is not simply aging, or rather, it is not the part of aging that you have to accept without response. There is a specific biological process happening in your muscles that has a name, has a mechanism, has been studied extensively, and most importantly, has interventions that work. Interventions that do not require a gym membership or expensive supplements or a radical overhaul of your entire life. It starts with what you eat for breakfast. My name is Dr. Clarence Martin. I have been working with elderly patients for many years, and the single most consistent pattern I have observed in patients who maintain their strength, their independence, and their physical function into their 70s, 80s, and beyond, compared to those who lose it progressively, is not genetics. It is not luck. It is the daily nutritional decisions that either support muscle maintenance or quietly undermine it. Today, I am going to give you 5 specific foods to add to your breakfast, not eventually, starting tomorrow. Because the process I am about to describe does not wait, and the sooner you give your body what it needs to fight back, the better your outcome will be. But first, let me explain what is actually happening inside your muscles. Because understanding the mechanism is what makes the solution make sense. The condition is called sarcopenia. The word comes from the Greek, sarx meaning flesh and penia meaning poverty, muscle poverty. It is the progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength that begins in most people somewhere in their 30s or 40s, accelerates significantly after 60, and if not actively countered, leads to the loss of the physical independence that most people take for granted until it is gone. To understand why it happens, I need to explain something about how muscle tissue works that most people were never taught. Your muscles are not static structures. They are dynamic, constantly being broken down and rebuilt in a process called muscle protein turnover. Old damaged muscle proteins are broken down and cleared away. New proteins are synthesized to replace them. In a young, healthy body with adequate nutrition and physical activity, this process is roughly balanced. Breakdown and synthesis run at comparable rates, and muscle mass is maintained. As you age, this balance shifts. The rate of muscle protein breakdown remains relatively stable, but the rate of muscle protein synthesis, your body's ability to build new muscle tissue, declines. The signals that trigger muscle building become less sensitive. The same stimulus that would have produced a robust muscle building response at 30 produces a weaker response at 65. This is called anabolic resistance, and it is one of the central mechanisms of sarcopenia. The consequences of this shift are real and progressive. Research published in the journal Age and Aging estimates that adults over 60 lose between 1 and 2% of their muscle mass per year without intervention. Over a decade, that accumulates into a meaningful reduction in physical capacity. Grip strength declines. Walking speed slows. The ability to rise from a chair without assistance, which researchers use as a reliable functional measure of lower body strength, decreases. And here is what makes sarcopenia particularly dangerous beyond the inconvenience of reduced strength. It is a major risk factor for falls. Muscle weakness and the loss of the fast-twitch muscle fibers that allow rapid postural corrections are directly associated with fall risk. And falls in adults over 65 are the leading cause of injury-related death in that age group. This is not a minor quality of life issue. It is a serious health threat with a clear biological cause and clear nutritional interventions. The good news, and there is genuine good news here, is that anabolic resistance, while real, is not absolute. Your muscles retain the capacity to respond to the right stimuli at any age. The research on resistance training and high-protein nutrition in older adults is remarkably consistent. People in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s show measurable muscle growth and strength gains in response to appropriate exercise and nutrition. The response is smaller than it would be in a younger person, and it requires more deliberate effort to achieve, but it is real and it is clinically meaningful. The key is giving your body what it needs consistently, every day, starting with the first meal of the day. Let me explain why breakfast specifically matters for muscle maintenance in older adults, because this is something that most nutrition advice does not address clearly enough. Muscle protein synthesis does not run at a constant rate throughout the day. It is stimulated primarily by two things: physical activity, particularly resistance exercise, and protein consumption. After each protein-containing meal, there is a window of elevated muscle protein synthesis that lasts several hours before returning to baseline. The goal, nutritionally, is to stimulate this response as many times per day as possible, which means distributing protein intake across meals rather than concentrating it in one large meal. Most older adults who struggle with sarcopenia eat a low-protein breakfast. Toast, cereal, fruit, pastry, carbohydrate-dominant foods that provide energy but do not meaningfully stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Then they eat a larger protein-containing meal at dinner. What this means biologically is that they are missing an opportunity for muscle protein synthesis in the morning and potentially in the afternoon, and concentrating their protein in one evening meal where the excess cannot all be utilized for muscle building. Changing breakfast, specifically making it protein sufficient, is the single most accessible and impactful dietary change most older adults can make for muscle maintenance. And the 5 foods I am going to walk you through are the ones that the research most consistently supports as effective, practical, and sustainable for this purpose. Food number 1. Eggs. Eggs are, in the context of muscle maintenance in older adults, one of the most valuable foods available. And I want to explain specifically why, because eggs have had a complicated reputation over the decades, and some people in your age group may have been told to limit them, and I want to give you an accurate current picture. A large egg contains approximately 6 grams of high-quality protein, but the quality matters as much as the quantity. Egg protein has one of the highest biological values of any food protein, meaning that a very high proportion of the amino acids in egg protein are absorbed and made available for muscle protein synthesis. The leucine content of eggs is particularly significant. Leucine is the amino acid that acts as the primary trigger for muscle protein synthesis. It is the key that turns on the building process. Eggs contain meaningful amounts of leucine in a highly bioavailable form. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition specifically examined the muscle protein synthetic response to whole egg consumption versus egg white consumption in young men after resistance exercise, and found that whole eggs produced a significantly greater muscle protein synthetic response, suggesting that components in the egg yolk beyond protein contribute to the anabolic response. The yolk contains fat-soluble vitamins including vitamin D, which has its own significant role in muscle function, as well as choline and other bioactive compounds. For older adults specifically, research has shown that egg consumption as part of a higher protein breakfast is associated with better muscle mass maintenance compared to lower protein alternatives. 2 to 3 eggs at breakfast, prepared in whatever way you prefer. Scrambled, poached, soft-boiled, made into an omelet with vegetables, provides a meaningful leucine-containing protein dose that stimulates muscle protein synthesis in the morning hours when most people's muscles have been without nutritional input for 8 or more hours. The current evidence does not support the severe egg restriction that was recommended in previous decades for most healthy older adults. For people with specific lipid disorders, discuss with your doctor. For most people over 60, eggs at breakfast are one of the most nutritionally justified choices you can make for your muscle health. As Dr. Clarence Martin always tells his patients, the egg is not your enemy. Ignoring your muscle loss is. Food number 2, Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt, specifically full-fat or 2% Greek yogurt, not the sweetened flavored varieties, is the second breakfast food Dr. Clarence Martin recommends consistently to older patients concerned about muscle loss, and the reason comes down to its protein profile and a specific type of protein it contains. A standard serving of plain Greek yogurt, roughly 150 to 200 grams, contains approximately 15 to 17 grams of protein. That is a significant protein dose from a single food. But the type of protein matters. Greek yogurt contains a mixture of whey protein and casein protein in the approximate ratio of 20% whey to 80% casein. Whey protein is rapidly digested and absorbed, producing a quick spike in blood amino acid levels and a rapid but relatively short-duration stimulation of muscle protein synthesis. Casein is slowly digested. It forms a gel in the stomach and releases amino acids gradually over several hours, producing a more sustained elevation of blood amino acids and a more extended period of muscle protein synthesis stimulation. The combination of both in Greek yogurt means you get the rapid initial stimulation from the whey component and the sustained amino acid availability from the casein component, a profile that is well suited to the extended fasting period of overnight sleep that your muscles have just experienced. Greek yogurt also provides calcium, which has relevance to muscle function beyond bone health, and depending on the brand, live probiotic cultures that support gut health. And gut health, through its effects on nutrient absorption and systemic inflammation, has emerging evidence of relevance to muscle maintenance in older adults. Choose plain, unsweetened Greek yogurt and add your own flavoring with berries, a small amount of honey, or nuts. The sweetened fruit at the bottom varieties contain added sugars that blunt some of the metabolic benefits and add calories without meaningful nutritional value. Food number 3, salmon or sardines. Dr. Clarence Martin understands that suggesting fish at breakfast is unexpected for many people raised on Western breakfast traditions. He makes the case for it anyway, because the nutritional argument is compelling enough that it is worth expanding what you consider a breakfast food. Fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, and trout being the primary options, provide two things that are uniquely valuable for muscle maintenance in older adults and that are difficult to obtain in adequate amounts from other commonly consumed foods. The first is high-quality complete protein. A standard serving of salmon provides 25 grams of protein with an amino acid profile that is highly suitable for muscle protein synthesis, including significant leucine content. The second, and this is what makes fatty fish specifically irreplaceable in this context rather than just a protein source, is omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA. The research on omega-3 fatty acids and muscle maintenance in older adults has become substantially more compelling in the last decade. Omega-3s have been shown to directly reduce anabolic resistance, the blunted muscle-building response to protein intake and exercise that Dr. Clarence Martin described earlier as a central mechanism of sarcopenia. A study from Washington University School of Medicine found that omega-3 supplementation in older adults significantly increased the rate of muscle protein synthesis in response to amino acid and insulin infusion, essentially making the muscle-building machinery more sensitive and responsive. A subsequent study found that older adults who consumed omega-3 fatty acids showed greater gains in muscle mass and strength in response to resistance training compared to those who did not, suggesting that omega-3s enhance the muscle response to exercise as well as to nutrition. The mechanism appears to involve omega-3's effect on cell membrane composition and their anti-inflammatory properties. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which is elevated in many older adults and is associated with accelerated muscle loss, is one of the drivers of anabolic resistance. Omega-3's potent anti-inflammatory effects partially counteract this. Sardines are particularly practical because they are inexpensive, shelf-stable, require no preparation, and provide both the protein and the omega-3s in a single food. On whole grain crackers or toast with a squeeze of lemon, they make a genuinely quick and extremely nutritious breakfast addition. Salmon can be prepared the previous evening and served cold in the morning. Smoked salmon is another option that requires no preparation. If fish at breakfast is genuinely not something you can adopt, omega-3 supplementation, fish oil or algae-derived omega-3s, in doses of 2 to 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA daily is a reasonable alternative, though whole food sources provide additional protein and nutrients that supplementation does not. Food number 4. Oats. The first 3 foods Dr. Clarence Martin has discussed have focused primarily on protein, the macronutrient most directly associated with muscle protein synthesis. Oats occupy a different role in the muscle maintenance breakfast, and understanding that role explains why they belong here alongside the protein sources rather than instead of them. Muscle protein synthesis requires 2 inputs: amino acids from protein and energy. If your body does not have adequate energy available from dietary carbohydrates or fats, it will break down amino acids for energy rather than using them for muscle building. This is called gluconeogenesis, and it is one of the reasons that very low-calorie diets or very low-carbohydrate diets can undermine muscle maintenance even when protein intake appears adequate. Oats provide a sustained source of complex carbohydrate energy. The beta-glucan fiber in oats slows glucose absorption, producing a gradual, stable rise in blood glucose and a modest, prolonged insulin response, rather than the spike and crash of refined carbohydrates. This steady energy availability supports the muscle protein synthetic response to the protein you consume at the same meal. Beyond this energy-sparing role, oats provide beta-glucan specifically, a soluble fiber with robust evidence for cardiovascular protection, as well as magnesium, which is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions, including those relevant to muscle contraction and protein synthesis, and zinc, which supports immune function and has relevance to muscle repair processes. The practical recommendation from Dr. Clarence Martin is steel-cut or rolled oats, rather than instant oats. The processing of instant oats increases their glycemic impact and reduces some of the fiber benefits. Cooked oats topped with berries and a tablespoon of ground flaxseed, which adds additional omega-3 fatty acids, alongside a protein source from earlier in this list, creates a breakfast that addresses multiple aspects of muscle maintenance simultaneously. Food number 5. Tofu, or edamame. The 5th food comes from traditional East Asian dietary practice and has, in recent years, accumulated a substantial body of research supporting its specific relevance to muscle maintenance in older adults, particularly older women. Tofu, made from soybeans, and edamame, which are whole young soybeans, are among the few plant-based foods that provide complete protein, meaning they contain all 9 essential amino acids in amounts adequate to support muscle protein synthesis. 100 grams of firm tofu provides approximately 8 grams of complete protein. The same serving of edamame provides approximately 11 grams. Soy protein has historically been considered slightly inferior to animal protein for muscle-building purposes because of a lower leucine content relative to whey protein. However, research specifically in older adults has shown that soy protein consumed in adequate doses, and adequate doses are achievable through whole food sources like tofu and edamame, produces meaningful muscle protein synthetic responses and supports muscle mass maintenance when consumed as part of a varied high-protein diet. Beyond the protein, soybeans contain isoflavones, plant compounds with mild estrogenic activity. In postmenopausal women, for whom the loss of estrogen is a significant driver of accelerated muscle loss, the evidence that dietary isoflavones from soy foods have a modest protective effect on muscle mass is growing. Multiple studies in postmenopausal women have found that higher soy isoflavone intake is associated with better preservation of muscle mass and strength compared to lower intake. This is likely part of why traditional Chinese medicine practitioners and Japanese dietary traditions have historically emphasized soy foods in the diet of older adults. The empirical observation over generations that populations consuming these foods maintained physical function better into old age, an observation that modern research is now explaining mechanistically. Tofu at breakfast can be prepared as a scramble. Crumbled firm tofu cooked with turmeric, which gives it a golden color and provides curcumin, an anti-inflammatory compound with emerging evidence of relevance to muscle health, along with vegetables and seasoning. That is a genuinely satisfying and protein-rich breakfast option. Edamame can be prepared ahead, refrigerated, and eaten cold as a breakfast addition or snack. Let me bring this together practically, because Dr. Clarence Martin wants you to leave this video with something you can actually do tomorrow morning, rather than a list of foods you are not sure how to combine. A breakfast that incorporates multiple elements from this list simultaneously is more effective than rotating through them individually. Here are 2 practical combinations. Option 1. 2 scrambled eggs cooked in a small amount of olive oil, alongside a bowl of rolled oats topped with mixed berries and a tablespoon of ground flaxseed with a small serving of plain Greek yogurt. This single breakfast provides approximately 30 to 35 grams of high-quality protein, sustained complex carbohydrate energy, omega-3 fatty acids from the flaxseed, and a mixture of fast and slow-digesting proteins from the eggs and yogurt. Option 2. A tofu scramble made with firm tofu, turmeric, and vegetables, alongside 2 to 3 whole grain crackers with sardines and a squeeze of lemon and a small bowl of oats. This option provides complete plant protein, animal protein with full omega-3 content, sustained energy, and meaningful anti-inflammatory compounds. Neither of these requires more than 15 to 20 minutes to prepare. Neither requires unusual ingredients. Both can be adapted to your specific preferences and any dietary restrictions you have. The research-supported protein target for older adults seeking to counter sarcopenia is approximately 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, meaningfully higher than the standard recommended dietary allowance, which was established for younger adults and has been shown to be insufficient for muscle maintenance in older age groups. A protein-rich breakfast, as described above, contributes meaningfully toward this daily target and establishes the right nutritional foundation for the hours ahead. Dr. Clarence Martin wants to close with something that he thinks is important to say directly. Sarcopenia is not a sudden event. It is a slow, quiet process that has been underway for years before most people notice it. The difficulty getting up from a chair, the balance that is not quite what it was, the fatigue after activities that used to be manageable. These are the visible signs of a process that has been happening at the cellular level for a long time. The response to it has to be similarly gradual and consistent. You will not reverse years of muscle loss in 2 weeks. That is not how biology works, and Dr. Clarence Martin is not going to tell you otherwise. What he will tell you is that the research is unambiguous that older adults who make consistent, targeted nutritional changes, specifically adequate protein distributed across meals with the omega-3 fatty acids and energy sources that support muscle protein synthesis, show measurable improvements in muscle mass and functional strength within 8 to 12 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks of consistent breakfast change. That is the investment. The return is maintained strength, maintained balance, maintained independence, and the ability to continue doing the things that make daily life worth living. Start tomorrow morning. Your muscles are waiting for the right signal. Give them what they need. I am Dr. Clarence Martin. If this information was useful, please share it with someone in your life over 60 who has been noticing these changes and does not know what is causing them or what to do about it. Subscribe for more content that takes the health challenges of aging seriously and addresses them with the honesty and specificity they deserve. Take care of your strength. It is worth fighting for.